Hello everyone, my name is Mike Valdez,
I'm Sabria Ross.
I'm Deboria Ross.
And I'm Atara Bass.
and we'll be presenting on Chapter 7, which covers organizational structure and design.
Hello everyone. So the first topic that we will be discussing is organizational design. Organizational design is just formal systems, levers, and decisions an organization adopts in pursuit of its strategy. Organizational design consists of two different functions, which is division of labor, is how work in a firm is divided among the employees, and then you have the coordinating mechanisms, which is specific activities that needs to be coordinated and how you coordinate them. Coordinating mechanisms consist of two approaches. The first approach is the bureaucratic approach. It's an extreme form of control and is highly formalized. It's also characterized by extensive rules, procedures, regulations, procedures, policies, and instructions. A benefit is that you learn expected rules and you learn how to respect them. A downfall is that it's not useful in creative or innovative settings such as the dynamic markets. On the other hand, the CLAN approach is self-supervising teams that are responsible for a set of tasks. It includes cross-training, so an employee is able to perform multiple tasks at once. A downfall is that it's challenging for pre-competitive and cost-sensitive industries. All right, the second topic is organizational structure, which is the pattern of organizational roles, relationships, and procedures that enables coordinated action among employees. It also enables the firm to maximize the internal resources to be more competitive in the market and prepare for changes at the same time. There are also three primary functions. The first function is that it defines roles in the labor force and it coordinates activities between members and supervisors. The last one is that it identifies the borders of the firm and external relationships. All right, so we also have formal structures. There are four types of formal structures, which is the functional, divisional, matrix, and network. The functional structure is when a firm divides people into units and perform main activities, such as production, you have marketing, accounting, and sales. It works well with small businesses, but it cannot deal with environmental change, which is a downfall. Next, we have divisional structures, which is when simply groups diverse functions into separate divisions. Firms can be organized around products, geographies, or event clients. The third one is the matrix, which is more complex. It's when an organizations that face multiple pressures at once, and its efforts made to create an organization that focuses on multiple dimensions, which can be a benefit, but a downfall is that since it's really complex, it can create confusion for the organization and the workers. The network structure is when knowledge workers are organized to work as individuals, individual contributors, or to be a part of a cluster. So an example will be an HR department specializing in recruiting, or an IT specialist. They can work individually or together. And then we have informal structure, which is the relationships that individuals form with each other as a result of their prior interactions. So this can be inside of work, in the work environment, or outside the work environment. All right, we already talked about informal structures, and now we have the life cycle of a firm. There are four phases. We have the startup, growth, maturity, and decline. During the startup phase, there is less job specialization, a broad decision rights, and open boundaries. And then for the growth, we have the emphasizes of division of labor and we also have specific, distinct coordinating. And then for maturity, we face complex markets. Lastly, the decline stage is when an organization will encounter cost management, realignment, and reconstructing. Lastly, we have recent trends of organizational design. So during this phase, many leading companies have shifted their focus on more customer-centric organization designs. And it also incorporates 5 specific activities, which is cooperation, coordination, capability development, clout, and connection.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation is a real-world case that demonstrates the importance of having an organizational perspective while implementing a new strategy. The FBI was established under the Department of Justice and was divided into 2 areas, criminal investigation and intelligence. As the years progressed, the FBI's organizational structure and design changed, especially after the World Trade Center and the Pentagon were attacked on September 11, 2001. After these attacks, the FBI's strategies and priorities changed, which was needed in order to establish better activities for the FBI. After these new priorities and strategies were set, that made the FBI not only focus on prosecuting criminals, but also focus on preventing terroristic attacks. Robert Mueller, Attorney General and Director of the FBI, realized that restructuring was not enough. Not only did the FBI restructure its organization, it also reallocated its resources and revised its purpose. Robert Mueller realized that the revision of the mission and purpose was the most important factor that the FBI needed to do. This ties into Chapter 4's Introduction to Strategy when discussing strategy formulation. Strategy formulation talks on how an organization may need to rethink its strategy, objectives, and tactics when environmental factors change. This is shown in the FBI's case because after the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, the FBI reorganized, restructured, and rethought their strategy and objectives. To implement these organizational and strategic changes, Robert Mueller, the director of the FBI, created multiple initiatives that were used to more clearly define the strategy, clarify its priorities, establish its objectives, and monitor the progress towards achieving those objectives. These initiatives were viewed as being responsible for producing a fundamental change in the FBI's organizational structure. Robert Mueller also transitioned the FBI from a divisional structure to a matrix structure, which not only improved communication, but also made the FBI better coordinate their activities. The FBI's case is a perfect example of how an organization is a work in progress, and how, as environmental as well as internal factors change, an organization needs to be able to adapt to ensure that it is efficient.
Okay, so we found a article published by the Harvard Business Review that was covering the topic of how to implement a new strategy to an organization without disrupting the operations of it. It was talking mainly about multinational companies that had designs such as the matrix, networked, virtual, and some various other setups. So it was determined through some research that a lot of organizations go through a restructuring process that kind of throws them into a cycle of never really landing back on their feet, and they're kind of just lost in turmoil. So this kind of leads off from historically relying heavily on a financial system, which is solely focusing on a budget. This causes a short-term financial considerations that overwhelm the longer-term strategic goals. So if you're not able to focus on the long term, then you'll be continually stuck going around in the short term. So the Harvard Business School actually produced what is called the Balanced Scorecard Framework to better align a structure and a strategy in an organization. They actually created this in their book that they wrote, which was the Strategy Focused Organization. And this is so that managers at every level can use this tool. Is it through the CEOs, the middle level, or if it's a divisional, the guy running R&D and so on. They also created a strategy map that delivers units' value propositions. So this enables managers to define and communicate the cause and effect relationships between each units. And these scorecards are useful tools for implementing and monitoring the unit's strategies. So the question that really was being asked in this article is also, is structural change the right tool for this job? And the answer is usually no. You don't really need a perfect structure for a company's strategy. Rather, they suggested that you have a more effective approach is to choose an organizational structure that works without major conflicts and then design a customized strategic system to align the structure to the new strategy. This keeps it a little more flexible and allows you to adjust and move forward when new things develop in the future. So companies, as I said, have recently applied this new framework to their corporate level strategy. This is to help them show how, this has really shown how headquarters have created value beyond its individual business. The source of corporate value creation is distributed between 4 perspectives. The first is financial, which can create enterprise level value by instituting effective processes for resource allocation, corporate governance, and negotiating with external entities such as governments, unions, and suppliers. There's also the customer perspective, which is leveraging relationships across multiple business units to offer common customers lower prices, greater convenience or solutions more complete than specialized competitors can provide. So this is like Hilton Hotels and McDonald's, who provide a consistent and low fare or a low price meal across the board, across the country, or other nations as well. And then there's also the process perspective, when multiple business units reap savings by sharing common processes such as purchasing, manufacturing, distribution, and research. So this can be anything from exploiting core competencies in specific technologies across multiple business units. The last one is the learning and growth perspective, which creates enterprise level value from activities related to human capital development and knowledge management. So this requires recruiting and training and IT-based special systems for capturing, storing, and communicating data across all units. So this framework isn't as simple as just implementing scorecards to the entire business and the supporting units and then adding it all up together to see a final score. And nor should it be as a replication of the same framework through the entire organization straight down, because there's different operating realities that have to focus on for one region versus another, or so forth. It should actually be more of following the idea of dual citizenship, which is described as all employees not only are members of their individual business unit, so like as a regional branch, but also have a responsibility to contribute to the corporate policies and priorities. So every unit's strategy map and balance scorecard are linked to the corporate scorecard. And this way, managers in each unit have clear measures that can tie their own activities to the enterprise values proposition. So we also found another relevant article, which is on the Valve Corporation, which is a video game developer company. It was founded back in 1996 in Washington, D.C., which has top releases such as Counter-Strike series, Dota 2, Half-Life, and Left 4 Dead. It instituted a quite unique organizational structure where they have no bosses. It requires a very high buy-in from the employees. So if you're not 100% about doing work on your own and not being told what to do, then you probably won't last there too long, and that's usually what happens from what is found in the article. There are no promotions, just new projects. So the peers determine their salaries by voting on their value. So usually there is a senior developer that steps up as a project leader when a new one arises. So usually that one would be determined to have more value to the corporation, and then they would receive a most likely higher salary. But with new projects, new clusters are formed to work on them. So this most closely relates to a network structure, how there's the different clusters that break off into different teams, yet they're all kind of working on the same type of project, which is technology and video game development. But the same principle, it just doesn't have the overhead guidance from management. There are also a few other similar cases of this type of structure that has been seen in the world. Another one is the General Electric company has run some aviation manufacturing facilities with no foremans or bosses. They just have one plant manager who just sets production goals and resolves problems, but never actually controls the workflow of the company. And there's another example is GitHub, which is similar structure as well, as a technology company, who has a small group of individuals that handle company-wide issues and external communications, but never actually sign orders to the workers. They kind of just handle, of like the thousands of workers, they just handle the work between other companies.
So one last article that describes everything that my team and I have been presenting today is called Microsoft Overhauls the Apple Way. And this is a New York Times article that basically describes how a lot of the organizational design of big major companies are becoming more similar. Some of the companies that this article has touched on is Microsoft, Amazon, Google, but they do identify Apple as the model company that a lot of these other companies are following behind. And the article also focuses on Microsoft because they are making some adjustments due to decline in the use and purchase of personal computers. So recently, as in 2 to 3 years ago, they have developed and put out the ability to use Microsoft Online in a cloud. The article focuses on their adjustments, and they have also identified some of the moves that they've made to adjust, which are somewhat similar, including consolidating many broad functions. In their case, 8 product divisions down to 4. They are more broad, but it's only 4. At Apple, Craig Federighi is the developer of operating systems for computers, but he is now focusing on computers and iPhones and iPods. Also at Apple, Jonathan Ive is the industrial designer of hardware, but now he is also focusing on the software of Apple Interface. And finally, at Google, Sundar Pichai is also following that model and now has become the developer of operating systems as well as devices and computers. So Microsoft is also taking that structure and placing all of the responsibility of engineering for Windows Phone and operating systems to Terry Myerson. This is a step toward consolidating those broad 8 functions down to 4. All of these countries do show a mixture of functional and network structure. Some of the units are more defined and do have more regulations, while a lot of it is open and free, and a lot of the jobs are given to one person. However, there is some frustration in the offices of Microsoft because they do have to depend on the moves of other companies, in this case Apple. And also a professor from Washington who is studying organizational design is explaining how these are temporary fixes, all of the changes in organizational design. As the problems come up, companies change their design to fix them and will continue to change them with new problems. In conclusion, we wanted to identify that strategy and organizational design are coevolutionary, and this idea has been shown in all of the examples we discussed today. Valve Incorporation, the FBI, Microsoft, Apple, they have all taken on an organizational design to help them reach a goal or an objective. In the case of FBI and Valve, they decided to focus on one specific trait in their workers or in their system. For the FBI, it was intelligence to prevent any future terrorism to happen, and Valve, it was creativity to enhance the creation of the video games that they were producing. Google, Apple, and Microsoft are all companies that have consistently displayed the importance of an efficient organizational design because we all use them today and they're all relevant in schools and work and many other environments. All of the points, articles, and studies that my group and I have studied over this course of time allows us to see that organizational design is an instrument to achieve objectives, goals, and any other endeavors that companies are wishing to do. Thank you. Just
Wait.
Oh my gosh, I'm freaking out.
For our interactive activity, we have a three question quiz that we all hope you complete. Question 1 is, what are the 3 functions of an organizational structure? Question 2, we ask that you match the following terms to the matching definitions. And question 3, we ask that you list some benefits of bureaucratic and clan approaches for organizational control. My team and I thank you for tuning in.